I caught my girlfriend planning to use me as her backup plan while waiting for her boss to divorce his wife, so I exposed her at our engagement party. The ring sat in my jacket pocket for 3 weeks before I worked up the courage to propose. I'd saved for 8 months to buy that 2-carat diamond, picking out something I knew Rebecca would love. Vintage setting, princess cut, the whole 9 yards. We'd been together for 4 years, living together for 2, and I genuinely believed she was the one. I planned the proposal for a Saturday evening at Riverside Park, the same spot where we had our first date. I'd arranged for a photographer to hide in the bushes, contacted her best friend to make sure Rebecca would be dressed nicely, and even hired a violinist. Looking back, the irony of how much effort I put into that moment makes me sick. When I got down on one knee, Rebecca's face did something strange. For just a split second, maybe half a second, she looked panicked. Not surprised, happy panicked, but genuinely distressed. Then her expression shifted into this overly bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh my God, Marcus, yes, of course, yes." But something felt wrong. The hug she gave me was stiff, her kiss was brief, and when I slipped the ring onto her finger, I noticed her hand was shaking. At the time, I convinced myself it was just overwhelming emotion. I was an idiot. That night, Rebecca said she was exhausted and went to bed early. I stayed up watching TV, feeling like something was off, but unable to pinpoint what. Around midnight, I heard her phone buzzing repeatedly from the bedroom. Once, twice, 7 times in a row. I walked to the doorway and saw the screen lighting up on her nightstand while she slept. The name on the screen said, "David, work." I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. I picked up her phone. She didn't have a passcode at the time. We'd always had an open phone policy in our relationship. I opened the messages. The first thing I saw made my blood run cold. David, did he do it yet? Rebecca, yes. He proposed an hour ago. David, and? Rebecca, I said yes. What choice did I have? You still haven't told Catherine anything. David, baby, I told you. I need to wait for the right time. She's been stressed about her mother's health. I can't drop divorce papers on her right now. Rebecca, it's been 6 months, David. 6 months of you saying soon, and I promise, and just a little longer. Meanwhile, Marcus is planning our future. David, I know, but you agreed to the plan. Keep Marcus around until I'm officially divorced. Then we can be together without any complications. You'll have financial security in case things with me don't work out. It's smart. Rebecca, I feel terrible. David, do you love me? Rebecca, you know I do. David, then trust me. By this time next year, you'll be with me, and Marcus will have moved on. Everyone wins. I stood there in the dark, reading and rereading those messages, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and crushed my heart with their bare hands. The woman I had lived with for 2 years, the woman I had just proposed to, was using me as a backup plan while she waited for her married boss to divorce his wife. I scrolled up. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of, I miss you, I can't wait until we don't have to hide, tonight was incredible, photos I will not describe, and detailed discussions about their future together. There were messages about hotel rooms, lunch breaks spent in his car, weekend work conferences that I now realized were never about work at all. I felt physically ill. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and walked to the bathroom where I spent 20 minutes sitting on the floor trying to process what I'd just discovered. Part of me wanted to wake her up and confront her immediately. Part of me wanted to pack my things and disappear. But a larger part, the part that was hurt and angry and betrayed, wanted to make her feel exactly what she'd made me feel. I decided to wait. I decided to play along. And I decided to gather evidence. Over the next 3 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I installed a recovery app on our shared laptop that saved deleted messages. I started taking screenshots of Rebecca's texts with David whenever she left her phone unattended. I created a hidden folder on my computer where I documented everything: dates, times, locations, conversations. The more I discovered, the worse it got. Rebecca had told David she found me safe but boring. She'd laughed about how I'd probably cry when she eventually left me. She'd discussed strategies for getting the maximum benefit from our relationship before ending it. There were messages about how she'd keep the furniture we'd bought together, how she'd tell our mutual friends that we'd grown apart, how she'd frame herself as the victim. But the most damaging evidence came from David himself. In his messages, he admitted that he'd been telling Rebecca he'd leave Catherine for over a year. He admitted that he had no intention of actually divorcing his wife because Catherine's father owned the company where he worked, and leaving her would mean losing his job. He admitted that he was using Rebecca for physical satisfaction while maintaining his marriage for financial security. Rebecca had no idea she was being played just as badly as she was playing me. During those 3 weeks, Rebecca played the role of excited fiancée perfectly. She showed the ring to her friends. She started a Pinterest board for wedding ideas. She called her mother to share the news. She kissed me goodbye every morning and told me she loved me every night. And every time she did, I felt another piece of my trust in humanity die. I started planning something I called the engagement party. I told Rebecca I wanted to celebrate our engagement with close friends and family before we got too deep into wedding planning. She loved the idea. I rented a private room at an upscale restaurant downtown, sent out invitations to 30 people, her parents, her sister, her best friends, my family, our mutual friends from college. I told everyone I wanted to make a special toast to celebrate this new chapter in our lives. What I didn't tell anyone was what I was actually planning. I worked with a friend who did audiovisual work to create a presentation. Nothing graphic, nothing that would violate anyone's privacy in an illegal way, just text message screenshots with timestamps and context. I organized it chronologically to tell the story, the beginning of the relationship between Rebecca and David, the escalation, the discussions about using me as a backup plan, the lies, the manipulation, everything. The night of the party arrived. Rebecca wore a navy dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. She looked beautiful. She held my hand as we walked into the restaurant, greeting guests, smiling, laughing. I watched her hug her mother and introduce her friends to my family. I watched her play the part of the happy bride-to-be, and I felt absolutely nothing but cold determination. Dinner was served. Champagne was poured. The mood was festive and warm. People kept coming up to congratulate us, to tell us how perfect we were together, to say they'd always known we'd end up married. Rebecca ate it all up, glowing with attention. After dessert, I stood up and tapped my glass with a fork. The room quieted. I thank you all so much for coming tonight. It means the world to Rebecca and me that you're here to celebrate with us. I wanted to gather everyone together because the people in this room are the most important people in our lives. You're the people who've supported us, guided us, and loved us. And I believe that the foundation of any strong relationship is honesty. Rebecca was smiling at me, her eyes slightly misty. She had no idea what was coming. So, in the spirit of honesty, I want to share something with all of you, something I discovered 3 weeks ago, right after I proposed. I nodded to my friend at the back of the room. The lights dimmed slightly, and a projector screen lowered from the ceiling. Rebecca's smile faltered. She looked confused. "What's happening?" she whispered. The first image appeared on the screen. A text message conversation between Rebecca and David, dated 8 months earlier. The message read, "I can't stop thinking about this afternoon. Marcus is working late again. Want to come over?" The room went completely silent. Rebecca's face drained of all color. "Marcus, what is this?" Her voice was barely audible. I didn't answer. I just let the presentation continue. Message after message appeared on the screen. The timeline of deception unfolding in front of 30 witnesses. Her discussions about using me as financial security. David's promises to leave his wife. Their plans for a future that didn't include me. Her comments about finding me boring but reliable. Rebecca stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Turn it off! Turn it off right now!" "Why?" I asked calmly. "You wanted to celebrate our engagement. This is part of our story, isn't it? The part where you were planning our wedding while sleeping with your married boss and discussing strategies for leaving me once his divorce was finalized?" Her mother gasped. Her sister started crying. Her best friend Melissa just stared at the screen with her mouth open. "You went through my phone?" Rebecca's voice was shrill now. "You violated my privacy." "I violated our relationship," I said, "for 8 months. Every single day you looked me in the eye and lied to me. You accepted my proposal knowing you were planning to leave me. You let me buy you a ring with money I'd saved for months while you were texting another man about your future together." The presentation continued. More messages, more evidence. The timeline showing that even during the week I was proposing, Rebecca had spent 2 afternoons with David at a hotel downtown. "I think we're done here," I said, removing the engagement ring from my own finger. I'd worn it on a chain around my neck that evening as a symbol to myself. "The ring is mine. I have the receipt. The apartment lease is in my name. I've already moved your belongings to your sister's house, with her permission. She was very understanding when I explained the situation earlier this week. Rebecca looked at her sister, who refused to meet her eyes. "You can't do this," she said, her voice breaking. "You can't just—" "I can, and I am. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." I turned to address the room. "I apologize to everyone here for the uncomfortable situation. I know this isn't what you expected tonight, but I felt that the people who've supported our relationship deserve to know the truth before investing any more emotional energy into celebrating something that was built on lies. Thank you for coming." I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. The aftermath was nuclear. Rebecca's parents were mortified. Her friends split into two camps: those who cut her off completely and those who tried to be supportive but clearly saw her differently. The story spread through our social circle within days. In a city like ours, where everyone knows everyone, there was no containing it. But the real fallout happened at Rebecca's workplace. You see, David had signed a morality clause as part of his employment contract, standard for executives at that company. When Catherine, David's wife, found out the relationship between her husband and his subordinate, she didn't just file for divorce. She reported him to Human Resources with evidence of the inappropriate workplace relationship. David was fired within a week. Rebecca was let go 3 days later for creating a hostile environment and violating company policy regarding workplace relationships. The company wanted to distance itself from the scandal as quickly as possible. Catherine, it turned out, was the daughter of the company's founder. David had been absolutely right about one thing in his messages to Rebecca. Leaving Catherine would have cost him everything, but he'd gotten himself fired instead, which cost him even more. Catherine filed for divorce immediately, and because of the infidelity and the prenuptial agreement he'd signed, David got almost nothing in the settlement. Rebecca tried to reach out to David after they were both fired, hoping they could finally be together now that everything was out in the open. He blocked her number. She showed up at his apartment, and he told her through the door that she'd ruined his life and he never wanted to see her again. She'd been useful when the relationship was secret and exciting. She was a liability now that it had cost him everything. I know all this because Melissa, Rebecca's former best friend, reached out to me about a month after the engagement party. She apologized for not seeing what was happening, for not being a better friend to me, and for inadvertently helping Rebecca maintain her cover story by confirming the fake girls' nights and shopping trips that were actually meetings with David. Melissa also told me something I hadn't known. Catherine had suspected David's cheating for months, but hadn't had proof. When the engagement party scandal broke and made local news, one of the guests had posted about it on social media and it had gone semi-viral. Catherine had reached out to me through a mutual connection, asking if I'd be willing to share the evidence I'd gathered. I'd sent her everything. 2 months after the engagement party, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Catherine. She thanked me for the evidence and asked if I'd like to meet for coffee. I was hesitant at first, but curiosity got the better of me. Catherine was nothing like I'd expected. She was sharp, funny, and remarkably unbitter considering what she'd been through. We met for coffee, talked about our respective betrayals, and found we had a lot in common. We both loved hiking, old movies, and had a shared appreciation for honesty after having been lied to so thoroughly. Coffee turned into dinner a week later. Dinner turned into a weekend hike. 3 months after that, we were officially dating. I want to be clear, neither of us rushed into this. We both spent time in therapy processing our respective betrayals. We both took things incredibly slowly. But there was something healing about being with someone who understood exactly what I'd been through, who valued honesty as much as I did after having it stolen from us. 1 year after the engagement party, Catherine and I moved in together. We adopted a cat, an orange tabby who had been surrendered to a shelter after his previous owners divorced. Leo had separation anxiety and trust issues from being abandoned. We understood him. As for Rebecca, I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to a different state to escape the scandal. She'd had trouble finding work because her previous employer wouldn't give her a reference, and the story had spread through our industry enough that her name was associated with the workplace affair. She'd sent me a few emails over the months, some apologetic, some angry, some begging me to talk to her. I never responded. David apparently moved back in with his parents in another state after the divorce was finalized. Last I heard, he was working a retail job and trying to rebuild his life. Catherine didn't keep tabs on him, and neither did I. Sometimes people ask me if the revenge was worth it, if I regret exposing Rebecca so publicly, so dramatically. The honest answer is, I don't know. Part of me thinks I could have just broken up with her quietly and moved on. Part of me thinks she deserved exactly what she got. Part of me wonders if I became someone worse in my quest to expose her. But what I do know is this. I'm happier now than I was in those final months with Rebecca, when I was loving someone who was using me. I'm with someone who values honesty, who communicates openly, who would never dream of making someone a backup plan. And I've learned to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. The ring I'd bought for Rebecca is still in a drawer somewhere. I can't return it because it was custom made. Sometimes I think about selling it, but I haven't gotten around to it. Maybe I'm keeping it as a reminder that the price of betrayal is always higher than the cost of honesty. Or maybe I'm just lazy about selling jewelry. Either way, I'm moving forward. Catherine and I are talking about getting engaged next year. Real engagement, built on real trust. And this time, I'll actually be sure about the answer before I ask the question. Life's funny that way. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you exactly where you needed to be all along.
Related comments. The public humiliation thing feels excessive to me. Like, I get being angry and wanting justice, but bringing her parents and friends into it? That's not just hurting Rebecca. That's nuking her entire support system when she's probably going to need it most. You could have just broken up with her, sent the evidence to Catherine privately, and moved on like an adult. Instead, you turned personal betrayal into performance art. But hey, at least you got your moment, I guess. Author. I understand your perspective, and honestly, I've thought about this a lot over the past year. But here's the thing. Those people were invested in our relationship. Her mom had already started talking about wedding venues. My parents were talking about grandkids. Our friends were planning bachelor and bachelorette parties. If I'd broken up quietly, Rebecca would have controlled the narrative. She'd already discussed with David how she'd frame the breakup to make herself look like the victim. Everyone would have thought I was the bad guy or that we just grew apart, and they'd have kept pushing us to get back together. The public reveal wasn't just about hurting her. It was about protecting myself from becoming the villain in her story. Comment. This is honestly the most satisfying thing I've read all week. People are clutching their pearls about the public call-out, but nobody's talking about how she was planning to marry this man while actively cheating. 8 months. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated campaign of lying. She wasn't some confused person who made a bad choice. She literally discussed keeping him as a backup plan with her affair partner. The engagement party revealed was chef's kiss perfect. She gambled with his heart and lost. Actions have consequences. Also, the fact that you ended up with Catherine and are actually happy, that's not revenge, that's karma doing its job properly. Comment. Quick question, how did you handle the shared apartment lease situation legally? You mentioned moving her stuff out before the party, but if she was on the lease or had established tenancy, that could have been a legal nightmare. Did you consult a lawyer first, or did you just risk it? Author. Good catch. The lease was only in my name. We'd moved into my apartment when we started living together, so she was never added as a tenant. I did consult with a lawyer friend beforehand who confirmed I was within my rights to ask her to leave, as long as I gave her reasonable notice and didn't dump her belongings on the street. Her sister agreed to take her in, and I moved everything carefully. I actually have photos time-stamped of how I packed and transported everything to prove I didn't damage or steal anything. I wasn't trying to get sued on top of everything else. Comment. Something similar happened to my brother, except he found out after the wedding. His ex-wife was seeing someone from her gym and had been for 6 months before they got married. He found out on their honeymoon when she left her laptop open. The worst part, she told him she only went through with the wedding because everyone was already there and it would have been embarrassing to cancel. Not because she loved him or wanted to try to make it work, just because it would have been socially awkward. Some people really do see relationships as transactions instead of partnerships. Your Rebecca sounds like she was the same way, keeping you around for convenience and stability while pursuing what she actually wanted. At least you found out before signing papers. Comment. I'm probably in the minority here, but dating Catherine feels weird to me. Like you're both bonding over being cheated on by the same two people. That's not a foundation for a relationship. That's trauma bonding. What happens when you both healed and realize you actually don't have anything else in common? You're both rebounds for each other and calling it fate. Just my 2 cents, but this seems like it could blow up in a few years. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.